So in this video we're going to see how to model the mouse. Remember that this mouse is not an orthographic image, it is just a perspective image cropped from top and the side view. We might not be able to match it perfectly because of we are lacking some of the front view profiles and so on. I have already placed them in the right layers, made them transparent, and lock the layers, so when we draw our curves we are not changing or selecting the planes which has these two texture on it by mistake. So make sure that the image references are on a layer and the layer is locked. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this top view in a full screen and draw the side curve that just follows the side view. So what we need basically in this creation method, we're going to use LOFT, and LOFT is basically giving us so I'm going to draw here some lines here. So we got our first curve, which is this one here. We're going to draw this, that's our first curve. We're going to mirror this from this center, so we get this side. Okay, so that's the mirrored plane. We got two, and then from the side view we're going to draw this third curve, drawing the profile of this. Now this one we might finish it here. No need to come all the way to the bottom. Remember that this is a perspective view, so this and this will come later with other tools in Rhino. Once we have these two, you will see in the front view we have one, we have two, and we have three. So basically 1, 2, and the third curve, which is this third curve here. We will eventually need to make two more curves, which is 4 and 5, which will allow us to make us a smooth surface based on the curves that we have made. So having that and using my curves, freeform curve, starting from now, remember that we are trying to find as close possible. My snaps are coming in my way, so I'm going to either hold Alt, so that disables my snap temporarily, or I can turn the snap completely off by disabling it. So starting somewhere from here, don't have to be precise at this point, just make sure that you're getting get the curves as close as possible. See, as I'm not trying to get very precise in the first time. So this side is done. I'm going to select this curve, make sure that we are changing this into its own, let's say curve layer, and select this curve, and we're going to mirror it, transform and mirror from the center, and there we go. If I turn off my image reference, you will probably notice that this curve here is not touching each other, and also at the bottom it's not touching each other. Now to have them touch each other closely here, we're going to do our match curve. So curve, edit tools, match between this and this. Now we want to make a tangent curve, tangency, position, average curves, do not join and accept, and repeat the same thing here between 1 and 2, same thing, do not join and accept. So these are two curves done. On this one we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 points. Now it's time to make the side view. Now since we are here, we're going to draw also the detail curve, which are these. Snaps on, endpoint snap from here. I'll just take it straight and join these two curves together. That's my side curve. Okay, now let's see. All these curves are going into the curve layer and going to top view. So turn off my image reference. So this is what we have: side view, top view, and the projection curves, which are going to add the details. Now for this curve, we need this point to come and touch and meet here at this endpoint, and same for the other endpoint. So I'm going to go match curve again. So match curve from my history panel. I want to match this curve with any of these two. This time you can see that because of the old settings, it is trying to be tangent and averaging both the curves. Now I don't want to disturb this curve, so average curves off, and I want this to come in straight down. So instead of tangency, I'll keep position and then click OK. So see that came down the same way here. Right click to repeat the command, edge and edge, same settings, average curves off. So that's is good. Now what we need is curve 4 and 5, as explained earlier. Why do we need that? Because without those 4 and 5th curve, if I try to do here a surface and loft between 1, 2 and 3, this is what we're going to get. It has a very steep slope and it's not very smooth. Okay, so trying to get this is more like a wide edge. Even if I go loose here, it makes something like this. Normal again. So for this reason, do not rebuild. So nothing is giving us the way we want this to. I'm going to delete this and now create those curve 4th and 5th. Now the 4th and 5th curve is coming from the command called curve from two views. We have one view which is the side and one view from the top. We need something in between those two. So curve from two views, selecting 1 and 2, it gives me the third curve. Now you might wonder, how was Rhino able to make this curve? What it did basically is it took this curve and it extruded that straight. Let's say one side only, it extruded that straight. It took this curve and extruded that up, and wherever these two surfaces are intersecting, using the curve from objects intersect, it is using this and this, it found that intersection curve. So you will notice that both are exactly the same, these two curves. All right, so that's how it brought in. Now always remember that the Rhino's automated curves with a lot of points. We don't need so many points, so I'm going to rebuild this curve, edit, rebuild, and in the rebuild options it says it had 65 points earlier. I'm going to make this with 10 points. Degree 3 is fine, and click OK to accept. And then same thing like this curve, we want the endpoint to come and meet at the end here. So I'm going to repeat that match curve. I want to match this curve with this so that matches up. Maybe I can move this one slightly, slide to the left. Same thing, match this to this. Everything looks good. F10. I can move this one slightly higher just to see a nice and smooth curve coming down without making some strange curves. Once we have this, we're going to mirror this between point 1 and 2. That's basically your center line. Okay, so this also goes into my curve layer, change object layer. So my curves are there, reference layer. Now I'm going to use the LOFT. I'm going to select these two and move it away from the center, so we can use that later for projections. Now we use the LOFT again. Surface, LOFT, select your curves in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. enter. If you're getting all these options, that means your curves were correct. If you get only last two, that means something wrong with your curves, they are not connected here. So make sure that I'm going to go loose, so it makes it a loose surface. The ends also looks nice and smooth. Once we have the surface that we want, look and see that it makes me a wider surface on top. Rebuild option is active. Without this, it was giving me this iso curves not so well distributed. I'm going to go and make this rebuild and click OK to accept. Okay, the bottom is still open. We'll close that later. So once we have this, I'm going to select my shapes here. Okay, now if you notice from the image reference, on this image reference we have, let me put this in a surface, change object layer, and I'm going to name this surface. And then we can add separate surface layers that will actually help us separate it for plastic, rubber, and so on. We'll use this layer later once we separate this surface into multiple parts using these two curves. Okay, so I'm going to hide this surface. So you can see that there are gaps. There are gaps between the part 1 and part 2. Similarly, you will see here we have gaps between these, and here there is no gap, but there is a sharp connection, so we'll not use a gap here. So to make this surface separate, use this, split this surface. Cutting object is going to be this curve here. So what it did is basically it got us the bottom part here. I'm going to put that in the black rubber and maybe change that to a dark gray. So that's your bottom part. Now for the top part here, okay, for the top part we can either do an offset curve on this to create the gap, or we can simply project this curve onto this surface, and then it will give us a curve going around. So let's do this curve from curve edit tools, curve from objects, project from the right view. Curves that I want to project is this one here, enter. Surface on which is this one here, enter. And you can see that it gave me this curve that is going around on that curve. Now on this object I can create a gap either using offset curves or using a pipe command that I'll show you in a moment. What we need here is the upper curves, these curves here. So I'm going to go in the top view and make these curves around. So these two curves, I'm going to move them I here so we can see the projection curves. So these are my projection curves. So we're going to project these two curves. So project, I'm doing from top view or perspective view, project it on this, and this is what we have. Okay, projected on the surface. I'm going to turn off my image reference, and now let's turn off my curves, and I'm going to now use these curves to create those gaps. Okay, so this one here is simply split. So split this surface with this edge, which gives me the hole. So that's the hole we have for the mouse wheel. And then this one here and this one here, these two curve, I'm going to use a pipe command, solid pipe 0.05, yeah, 0.05 looks good. So it will able to give us the right gap. Now with this pipe, we're going to split this surface. So we're going to select the surface, splitting, cutting objects are this pipe and this pipe. It says here split into 5 pieces. So if I go into select this object and put it into plastic 1, select this object, put that into plastic, change object layer, plastic 2, maybe change this to an orange, okay, and the other one remains blue. So if I take these pipes, delete, and this pipe here, delete, you can see it left behind those gaps. So I can select this gap here, blue, and delete that, and select this surface and delete this. So that creates that small gap. Okay. All right. So this is how you make your surfaces. So after you do that, make sure that your surfaces are thick. So this object isolate. So this object should be thick. So surface, offset surface, and then I'm going to offset surface to the other side. Distance maybe 0.75, and I'm going to make this into a solid, and loose to no, yes, that's fine. It's too thick. Again, flip all, distance 0.3, solid to yes, yeah, 0.3 looks good. Now all these measurements will make sense if you were making it in the right size. So you do that also for this. So offset surface, same values, solid to yes, and that gives us the second object. Okay, now we have this object which has a slight gap. Okay, which has a slight gap. Okay, and so I'm going to go here a quick box, and using the image reference, so let's say the box is about this much. I'm going to raise this high. Boolean difference. I want to cut this object, enter, using this box, delete input to no. Maybe I needed this to remove this also. So once I do that, let's put this in a layer and hide this. So it has created that gap for us, which is also a solid geometry, right? Turn off my image reference. So in this part, we're going to check how to fix this issue here. You can see the shading is slightly different here, how the shape is making a slight kink, and this kind of shading is not okay because fillets will always fail in these situations. If you try to do fillet here, you can see also in this part here, fillet will fail. Let's try the fillet just to see if it works or not. I have closed the bottom part using the solid gap planar holes that closes the gap. Now if I do the fillet here, solid fillet edge and fillet using this curve and this curve, enter. If I want to make this one slightly bit more rounded, and then this part here one is fine, enter. And you can see the fillet failed. The fillet failed on this area. So to fix this issue, to troubleshoot this issue, I'm going to go in the side view in the right viewport and create here a simple curve. To fix this issue in the right view, I'm going to create here a curve that is going to be used to trim. I'm going to use this to trim this upper piece. I'm cutting it more here, narrow piece here. The reason is in the mouse it is more rounded in this part, and sharp side on this other end. So using this, I'm going to trim off the surface. So what it did, it got me this lower part cut out completely. We do have our curves sitting underneath. Okay, it happened in the first place because of these curves which are not aligned in the beginning. You can see in the surface. Turn it off. See these two curves. It was still active. These two curves. See, these two curves are slightly out of this curve. So this is the reason why it happened. If this one was slightly up like this, we shouldn't have had that issue in the first place. Something like this. Anyway, so to fix this issue, now I'm going to use this curve here. These two curves, I'm going to join them temporarily. Join these two curves temporarily and do a quick curve, offset curve. And I'm going to use here a through point, which will allow me to manually choose the distance. And I'm going to choose here a lose to yes. Lose to yes will give me lower number of control points. If I do use a lose to no, you can see between lose to yes, it gives me less amount of control points equal to what I have in the original curve. And with the lose to no, it gives me a lot of control points. We want to avoid this at the moment. So with this curve here, I'm going to take the curve, snap here, and I'm going to draw a smooth curve. That's the smooth curve from here. Snap, and snap from here, and snap back as well. Okay, so we have the sharp curve coming down at this area and a smooth curve coming down in here. Since we offset the surfaces, this curve here, I'm going to explode it. So we're going to see that these two curves are separate now. We're going to match this curve to avoid any kinking here. So go to curve, edit tools, match between this curve and this curve. We'll make them tangent. Position, average curves do not join. We'll do the same thing at the back end. So we're going to go and repeat the command between these two, tangency, position, average curves. I can join this now. Now we have curve one. Now we're going to do is surface to rail sweep. This is rail 1, rail 2, section 1 and section 2. Enter. We're going to close the sweep, close sweep, so it closes the sweep completely, and rebuild section if you need to between this and this. Click OK to accept. And then we might not be able to join these two together. If I select both of them and try to join them, it might fail, unable to join surfaces. So what we're going to do here is create a small gap in between using the pipe command and splitting, and then do the blend surface. I'm going to do here a quick surface, solid and pipe, like this edge, and make a small pipe diameter, something like this, and use this pipe to split these two surfaces using this. Enter. I'm going to delete these areas which leaves me the gap. Now we can do our blend surface. I'm going to go surface, blend surface between auto chain set to yes, between edge 1 and edge 2. Enter. Tangency and go to accept. Once we have all this, we can join all these three surfaces together. Solid Kapner holes to fill that bottom piece. Surface is flipped on the wrong side, so I'm going to select and analyze direction. Flip this direction. You can see here we have a sharp corner. Going back to the full piece, we have a sharp corner at the bottom and a round in the front, and it's a single geometry. Okay, so that basically completes our complete our mouse model. Next, we're going to build this mouse wheel using the other surfacing tools. So in this part, we're going to see how to model the mouse wheel. The mouse wheel is showing radial information. We're going to use here a circle, 3-point circle, and let's say my snaps off. I'm going to pick one point here, second point at this edge, and the third point is going to be somewhere where we start to see that the radial dimension matches up with that image reference, so something like here. So we're going to create that edge from the front view. I have created this. Okay, this one is the curve, this is the circle. Let's isolate from the rest of the geometry. Now this circle is going to be like a reference for the revolve center. So this is the surface curve. So this is the curve that we have generated. So surface, revolve, select this curve to revolve, enter. My revolve axis is going to be the center of the circle, center of the circle. From the front view, full circle, and this is the shape we got. Onto this shape, we can go into the solids, cap planar holes to cap the both endpoints. This mouse has some ridges. For the ridges, I'm going to make a small sphere and deform the sphere. So let's say a small sphere, the same shape, and we can now do a polar array from the right viewport. Polar array center is this circle center. Number of copies 28. Enter and check if it is matching. Looks like it is matching. I'm going to press enter, and we have those 28 copies. I'm going to select all of them that created newly. So edit, select objects, last created object, and this one. I'm going to make them into a group so I can select them with one click, and then Boolean difference from this object. Boolean difference, select this object, enter, and that will do a Boolean difference. This object I can hide in a layer. Let's change object layer and isolate isolate this geometry, and then if you need, I can do a quick fillet on all the edges. So fillet edge, solid fillet edge on all these edges here, geometry, and then we bring back our rest of the surfaces. Select, and that's my curve. Okay, I have moved this slightly in the front, and that completes our mouse model. I'm going to make this full screen, check the rendered mode. Rendered mode looks good. Okay, go back to shaded mode, and that completes our geometry.